Good morning, folks. Let's get back to Johnny 5. We started building him 5 years ago. I'll talk a little bit in a second about the backstory of what happened, how he got started, and why we quit for a little bit. But I feel reinvigorated and I want to bring him to fruition because he is so close. So this is a quick update video. I wanted to show again where we are on the build, talk a little bit about the current challenges for us, what we're waiting on, next steps, and just give back because so many folks did such a great job at building parts and helping with him. So very quick backstory. We've got other videos on this, but I was born in 1983. I loved Short Circuit. I loved Johnny 5. I think like so many folks that have seen that movie or that grew up in that era, there was just something about him that resonated, whether it was the motion of his head, whether it was the way he flipped his little eyelids that we've got here made out of titanium that will be such a part of humanizing him as a robot. It was the early days of computers or consumer computers. It was a pretty good movie plot, I thought. Certainly didn't win an Oscar, but I loved it. There was just something humanizing about him. It was also edgy enough, in Short Circuit 2 with the, I can't think of the name of the gang. Somebody tell me in the comments below what was the name of that gang that disassembled. Short Circuit 1 was better for the record. Anyway, we had this idea of building him. Found out about the folks that are also doing these builds. That obviously helped tremendously on having access to some of the files. And we really killed it. I'm paraphrasing here, but we built almost all of the bottom part or half ourselves. And then I think we kind of ran out of steam. We'd been sharing it and actively posting videos, and folks said, hey, we want to help, and that is awesome. And so many folks made parts shown on here, or some of you can see, some of them you cannot see because they're sort of hidden or nested inside of there. And then I want to say it was COVID that kind of put on pause, but if I'm being totally honest, I think we kind of lost some steam right before COVID with him, and there's not a good excuse. It's we had different interns or people working on him. Our business has really taken off, and there's a balance. I mean, we can only justify doing him because we have a side business of running Saunders Machine Works, which is great. I've also wanted to get back into doing him for a little while, and I didn't because I was kind of paralyzed by not knowing where to start. And Grimsman and I were talking about this on the podcast today, and I think it's hopefully a moment worth sharing, which is, I'm not building a full-blown Johnny 5, or if you think of it that way, you're never going to get done. You've got to get it done by breaking it down. So don't think about the whole robot. Just pick out the neck head, the neck assembly, or just pick out the head, or even just one part of it. That's the way you tackle it. Don't worry, don't even think about the rest of the build because it doesn't do you any good to think about it. Break it down into smaller steps that you can achieve. Because I'm also worried, I don't know what areas aren't perfectly done yet. We may have some parts that are unfinished, especially on the upper torso and the hands and the shoulders, but I'll figure that out as I go and get familiar with all the individual little parts. It's also really fun to think back to how far 3D printing has come. When we started him 5 years ago versus today, we've got 3 bamboos here at the shop. They're so much easier to use. They're faster, multicolored filament. That gets me excited, although I've always approached this build as wanting to do as much of it as machine parts because we're a machine shop and he needs a lot of the parts machined. But I think the majority of the parts that have to be machined, we've already done and are more of the structural base and the foundation. Some of the parts, like the head parts, are better to be 3D printed because of the geometry of the part. And frankly, you'd want the lightweight nature of it. I think a lot of them on the movie set prop were probably thermoformed plastic. But like, I printed these 2 parts this morning on the bamboo. No big deal. Each part was an hour, hour and a half. They look pretty darn good. I'll probably end up sanding and painting them, but that can come later. And that's kind of my other approach that Grimsman and I were talking about was it's okay to kind of build him and finish him and decide, make some notes along the way of, okay, I did this part, it's there, it's in place. I'd like to come back and improve it later. That's okay, because I'd rather get him done than be paralyzed by just being stuck on something. And he is, we think, about 90% done. There's a lot of work to do on the head and the arms, like I said. The tool arm he had that had a flip out quick change or Swiss Army knife sort of thing, but he's not far away. In fact, I've got the drive system still hooked up. Here's a little video of when we actually powered it on. He will move around. That is the next big frontier, will be figuring out what exactly we do for all of the electromechanical aspects of controlling his head, his arms, the track movement. My dream has always been to have a telemetry suit where a student at a grade school could take Johnny 5 to the school, and the science teacher could let the kids put on a telemetry suit and move him around. Like, how cool would that be? Feels like a pipe dream. I don't think it is, but before I get to that, we've got to get him finished. So again, folks, I feel very energized to have this back. We'll be sharing more updates as we get along. Otherwise, folks, I wanted to take a quick time out to show some of the Fusion side of things, where we're at on the CAD side. So here is not the complete assembly. I am having a little bit of trouble getting the full CAD, latest version of the CAD file uploaded into Fusion. And so here's what's going on. I went over to the GitHub page, and I'm not a Git expert by any means, but if you're on this URL code, open with GitHub desktop, that will let us clone the repository, which basically downloads it to your computer. You have to put it in something like a root folder of the C drive, because otherwise you'll get Windows errors, because some of the folder nesting things are too long because of all of the folder, subfolders, character names, etc. And it is otherwise a very, very well done CAD system. I will give them tons of credit. It's unfortunately in SolidWorks, which is not what we use, and I think that's part of my struggle. What I'm doing right now is, let's take for example the neck. I can't upload, to my knowledge, this into Fusion in this file structure, because you need all of the part files and assembly files in one folder. So the relatively simple hack that I've figured out would be to create a new folder, and then in the neck folder, search for all of the .sld PRT files, copy all 49 of these over to that folder, and do the same thing for the, those are the part files in SolidWorks, and then the same thing for the SLD ASMs. Those are the assembly files in SolidWorks. That puts all the part files and assembly files in one folder. That you can then upload into Fusion. You just drag all the files in here. It asks you which one is the parent assembly, and that's the one that doesn't have any of the neck. I think it's actually easier to see it right here. It doesn't have the A, B, C, it's just the neck assembly right here. And that has worked great for any of the smaller components like the neck assembly, and I'm also going to start working on the tool arm part as well. But it's not working for some reason on the complete assembly, so I need to figure out that, or if anybody has suggestions, let me know. And unfortunately, we also don't get any of the joints, which I suspect would work if this was able to be opened in SolidWorks. So if somebody wants to help out on that, I certainly wouldn't mind somebody taking a look at this in SolidWorks, although I'm still not sure how we would be able to move it from SolidWorks into Fusion, but I'll leave that question out there if anybody wants to help. Otherwise, it's great to see how well designed this is. It looks so cool, and what I'm starting to do is print parts. And so, for example, I know we have this part already machined, and we have one of the knife blades machined, but some of the other parts we don't. And so it's one part at a time. Tackle it that way. As always, though, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. Take care. See you soon.